Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at energy fuels. It is time for another update, and on this chart we have been focusing on this idea of a potential 1-2 setup, and we have been looking to develop the third wave to the upside. Now those of you who watch this channel know that for this to be a valid wave 3, it must be an impulse and it must reach the 138.2% extension. Well, that's not necessarily to be valid, but that is to be able to reliably track a follow-up correction in a wave 4. The only real rule we have in terms of the extension of the wave 3 is that it cannot be the shortest wave. Now, this sits at the $130 level. We have already built the wave 1, 2, and 3 within this uptrend. We have the wave 4 in place, and we only need a fifth wave. And this doesn't look very promising, as we are at the bottom of the area of support for continuation to higher prices in at least one of the scenarios. So the likelihood of actually reaching this ideal target within this fifth wave is extremely reduced. Technically, we could form even this as another 1-2 setup and extend in a much stronger push to the upside in a follow-up wave 3, but we would still need to hold internal levels of support in a series of 1-2 setups in this area, at the very least, if it doesn't manage to form it in a more direct fashion. And in that case, I would normally see it hold the 50% retracement anyway, which right now it's struggling to very hard. It's still trying, but doesn't seem to have a lot of luck, as it is consolidating at the bottom of the support. We will of course be discussing about those levels in a moment, but before we get there, I want to discuss the other options for this chart. So actually I will bring that back. So remember, from a large time frame perspective, we have an ABC pattern that we can consider easily as complete. The thing is, this could see even further extensions in a larger wave A, and this ABC could be tracked as a wave A. We could be looking for a wave B to the upside and a wave C to even lower prices. Now, this is an example. It could be a wave 1, part of a diagonal structure. It could be a wave W, part of a WXY. Doesn't really matter. The main point is we could be looking for another extension. In such a case, we would expect to only form an ABC pattern within this structure to have the correction complete in which we expect to top. In such a case, we would be looking at the ideal target for the wave C to be at the 100% extension of the wave A. This sits at the $47 level. Within the wave C, we expect to build a 5-wave pattern, and this seems to be very much following through at the moment within a possible completion of the wave C. Now, don't get me wrong, I will still be tracking even an additional potential 1-2 setup in this area once we actually form a top, but I will be extremely skeptical to look for positions until I actually have a confirmation that a more substantial low is in place. Meaning that I have a 3-wave pattern that could be a correction in one count or the other, and I see an initial 5-wave move to the upside. That would allow me, doesn't really need to be this large, it could be smaller, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5th. This would allow me to look for a 1-2 setup once again that would actually have a reliable area of support we can track in at least another 5-wave move to the upside in either a wave C or a wave 3. Now, with that said, right now, we are still looking for continuation higher within this structure. I don't believe this 5th wave is complete, and even if we break the 50% retracement, I did provide you a backup count that would allow us to still track continuation higher prices. By the way, the idea of getting in the wave C to the 100% extension of the wave A is not a hard rule. We could come short of it if we fail to actually build an impulse within this area and finish this 5th wave as an ending diagonal. It would be a very good chance we will not reach the ideal target for the wave C, the $47 level, although again, it's not a hard requirement for it to be a valid wave C. Now, in this structure, we have been tracking a couple of ideas. So firstly, we were looking for a potential impulse to form to the upside. Here we had a 1-2 setup, a 3rd wave up, 4th wave down, and then a 5th wave that would complete the 5th wave. In this wave 3, however, we were looking to actually form an impulse that is required for us to actually be able to track an impulse within this structure. In such a case, we would need to hold the levels of support for a wave 4 correction that only extend down to the $19.8 level. Without looking too much into the internal structure in this area, we do have a 3-wave pattern and we did push into the last level of support. We did not break it in a sustained manner, and it seems reasonable to actually continue in a 5th wave so far. But for this, we need to bottom. We cannot form another low within this area. If we actually extend lower, it is most probable that this count will fail and we will need to start tracking other interpretations. Now, by the way, in the previous video, we were also looking for a possible extension here in a 5th wave in orange. That has failed gracefully. Yeah, we can actually go here in the smaller time frame. We did initially have an attempt to hold the levels of support. We only got a wick below it, but ultimately it did fail. Now we can even remove this interpretation from the chart completely. No longer applicable. We have our top within our wave 3. We are not looking for any extensions higher. That was made clear. The break below the 78.6% retracement was going to settle that. We were also looking for this idea of a potential initial 5-wave structure to form to the downside, and even though we didn't break here the area of resistance we were tracking in a sustained manner, fortunately I don't believe this would be able to be considered an actual 5-wave move to the downside. This 5th wave just smells a lot more like a wave C in an ABC pattern in a 3-wave move to the downside. So right now I'm not necessarily discarding the possibility of something more bearish going on, but at the same time, I would not focus on that idea. So in this structure, we have already extended to lower prices. I would have liked to track this in an ABC pattern complete with the low we have formed yesterday. A similar structure we have on the uranium energy chart, but there it's actually a bit more grim as we are heading very close to the last level of support, and the structure does seem prone to actually forming an initial 5-wave move to the downside, which has bearish implications. On this chart, however, doesn't seem to be the case, although I cannot discard the possibility of a series of 1-2 setups that would be forming instead. So this latest push that we have had today is not going to provide us very reliable information. All that I could gather from this push to the downside is that either we are building something like, who knows, maybe an ending diagonally, not even this looks good, or potentially a series of 1-2 setups, but I wouldn't confirm it to be one way or the other. It's within such a small time frame that those all could be just distortions, and we might be better off zooming out and actually focusing on the levels of support. So right now, we are sitting here at the 50% retracement. Yeah, we have just pushed below it once again. Not a good sign. It seems likely to break. The structure that has formed even within this small time frame to the upside is only in a 3-wave move. Seems as well prone to extend to even lower prices. So we need to have our other options available, our other ideas to track continuation to higher prices. And unlike on the uranium energy chart, we actually have a backup scenario here because we were tracking this as an impulse. The 50% retracement was allowing this to actually extend in a 5th wave of a large wave 3. So the idea is we could be looking for a potential completion of this 5th wave in green as a diagonal pattern instead. So this area of support that extends all the way down to the $17.7 is nothing new. I have already provided you this idea for you to have the level that I'm looking for continuation higher against. As long as this still holds, I would not consider this chart to have formed a more significant top. Unfortunately, we will need to allow it to extend a little bit lower before we would be able to have a firmer belief that we aren't going to extend to higher prices. Now, this area doesn't actually just start at the $17.7 level. We could still be building this pattern instead. The area of support would actually be here between the $23.5 all the way down to the $17.7. It's just that we were focusing on the idea of an impulse because this would allow us to look for continuation to even higher prices. Yeah, we would have built here a 5th wave and then we would have needed a fourth and another fifth to complete the entire fifth wave in green, yeah? In the case of the yellow interpretation, we are looking to form a bottom within this wave 4, we are looking to build a fifth wave in an ABC pattern, and that is it. We don't need any additional extensions higher, and we would have a full count. Of course, we could be looking for extensions higher, but remember the risk that I have been pointing to you throughout so many videos already. We have been talking about this for months at this point. Once we have a full 5-wave pattern within this area, we could be looking for extensions in a third wave indeed, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video. But this could be a more complete count in a wave 1, potentially looking for a retracement in a wave 2 before continuing our uptrend. But at the same time, could be a wave C. We could be looking for a much deeper retracement, even if we are to continue the uptrend and not head to new all-time lows. The support levels would start significantly lower, and we would very likely go below the beginning of this entire uptrend we have been tracking in the fifth wave to the upside. Now, those of you who have used the area of support would not necessarily feel too bad about taking profits even now, even below the 61.8% retracement, even if you bought at the first level of support in the green area, yeah, the $17.6, you would still come out even. You would still not lose on this chart if you were to set, for example, a stop loss at that point. Yeah, sure, maybe a few dollars due to the spread. Now, to be honest, on this chart, I would actually strongly prefer that we extend within another high still. I wouldn't like for it to fail to create the entire pattern, and I have to say, I cannot rule out even the possibility of forming a triangle within this wave 4 in green, in which case we wouldn't necessarily need to form an additional low, a reset of the wave 4, or yeah, go below the beginning of this entire move to the upside, but it might take a significant amount of time before we build it, and you would be betting that this is going to build a triangle in a wave 4 and then a fifth wave to the upside. And don't get me wrong, it's possible, that's why I mentioned this scenario to you, but triangles aren't necessarily the most common pattern. And for now, the only thing that I would leave you with additionally on this chart is an ideal target for this correction bottom that we could track. That would be the 100% extension of this, could be wave A, yeah, something like that. We could have here a wave B and a wave C unfolding. I'm not judging necessarily too much the structure. We might be looking at distortions, perhaps an internal 1-2 strap here, a third down, fourth up, and a fifth wave down, in which we could see, who knows, another low in a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 15, an ending diagonal. Not going to focus too much on the exact structure, it is within such a small time frame and it is clearly distorted. Yeah, I don't really see a 3-wave pattern in this initial push to the downside necessarily. I do see one in this follow-up. Could be a series of 1-2 setups. Again, don't focus on the structure, on the count, focus on the levels of support. And once again, as long as we still technically hold the previous low we have formed yesterday in this swing below the 50% retracement, we did still hold the area of support. We could technically still be looking for continuation in a fifth wave in an impulse, but against the $17.7, I'm still looking for this pattern to extend to higher levels within a fifth wave. And for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.